you really define success? Everyone has the right and responsibility to develop the parameters for themselves of what success really means. Today we'll be talking with Allison Moore, who is here, talking about her new book, Nailing Down Success. And then we also have on the show today Richard Dighton, who is running for the 2nd Representative District, and he'll be talking about his campaign. We have an exciting show for you today. And then finally, we'll be talking about Ferguson, Missouri, and the death of Michael Brown and how we deal with that, how we unpack that. How do we define what it is to be a young black man in America, and whether or not black skin has been criminalized? We'll deal with all of those things right here today on The Exchange. The Exchange starts right now. I'm Donald Morton. Thank you for tuning in today to The Exchange. We have on the show today our very first guest, which is Allison Moore, who has written a book entitled, she is the author, in fact, of 2 books, I Was, I Am, and her newest book, Nailing Down Success. I want to welcome you to the show. Thank you so much for coming to hang out on The Exchange. It seems to me you know a little bit about what it means to be successful, and you've talked often about how we develop those parameters or defining what success is. Talk a little bit about your book and how it comes about.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me.
Sure.
I think what is most important is my definition of success, and I always say, if at first you don't succeed, redefine success. So my book gives a perspective of how failure really motivates success if you learn to redefine it for yourself. So very often, not only in business, because the book is basically about business failure, how to bounce back after business failure and launch the business of your dreams, which is what I've done. And it really comes from just understanding what success means to you, as opposed to what the world's definition of success is, or what you see, and mirroring that as success. Because a lot of times we don't go against what other people are saying we should do or would look successful. So we withhold, sort of dummy down our own dreams and visions and things that we want to do, not only for our personal lives, but in our business lives. And so then success does not come to people who have that perspective.
So it's amazing that you define, when you define success, or at least the terminology that you use about success, is customarily when at first you don't succeed, try and try again, which is not what you just said.
Right.
Because to try the same thing over and over again doesn't really produce any different kind of result. So you've successfully redefined what it is to be successful.
Redefine what it is to be successful, because there's things that we learn along the way in our journey, and when you keep doing the same thing over and over again, there needs to be some sort of a a defining moment for where really am I going? So a lot of times people want success on the end side. It's like, I want to be successful. But very rarely do people define, what does that really mean? I work with people, I coach individuals on building successful lives, building successful businesses. And most of them just want what appears to be success with no real thought about what it really means to them. It'll be, I've had people say, oh, well, so-and-so said that I should do this because I'm really good at it. Or statistics say that this type of business would be really good to start in this community. Well, what do you say? So I think that I've broken the mold in that by redefining success and doing some of the things that people are like, how did you do that? And what happens is, when you get clear, your mind is quiet enough to have the answers that you already have within. So if you stop the chatter from the outside of what everyone else is saying that you should do, get quiet enough and be honest with yourself to know what is it that you really want to do, and then pursuing that is what flourishes success.
Why are we not honest, right? What causes us, what are the impediments that forbid us from being honest with ourselves, not just about success, but about who we are as people, what those gifts really are, and are we so inundated and intoxicated with making sure that we fit the molds other people have set for us that we never get to that kind of self-definition?
All of the above.
Okay.
But mainly the biggest perspective, and I deal with this in my book, it says that we're created extraordinary, but we're programmed to be ordinary. So at a very young age, we're programmed by all the people who are closest to us, which is usually our parents, coaches, teachers, counselors. They define what success is to us. And it's crazy how when you really look at like how that starts, your success is defined on your grades, your athletic ability, and your popularity. So you start that very young. If you don't get good grades, you can't do this. And if you don't, if you don't go to this activity. So it's driven by not anything that you have even thought of, as if we don't have within us enough to know what we already want to do. Everyone else puts on us what they think we should be doing very young. So the lack of success defined would then be just the fact that we are always seeking to please or get the approval of other people, which is what we were talking about a little bit earlier. Is if they say it's a good idea, then it's a good idea, because that's what we've been taught. If your teacher says that you can't be that, or that doesn't work here. If you look at any success story, whether it's business, whether it's personal life, whether it's overcoming the odds, it all has the same core, multiple failures and going against the grain with what other people think would work. Like you think it's Starbucks. I use that as an example often. He probably told people, oh yeah, I'm gonna charge people $6 for a cup of coffee, and they're gonna come in every single day and buy one. Like people probably thought that was crazy. I had people say to me, no one's ever gonna pay $50 for a manicure, pedicure. And I get that 3 times over. So it's really just, what is it that you want, and being true to yourself, and then just really, just drowning out all of the outside.
Very, very important. You were kind of looking to your right, and nobody saw Richard Dighton that is on your right. He is running for 2nd representative district, right?
Yes.
And what Allison just talks about is this whole idea, notion of what success is and defining success for one's self. Tell me the reason for which you are running, right? Because as a politician, I don't know whether or not you view the campaign and ultimately what happens down in Dover if you win, but how do you define success in a very real way for what you are about to do?
Well, I've always said, I've often said that I want my success not to be defined by what I personally accomplish, but by what I help others accomplish. I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me. And I understand issues as it relates to education, crime, the major issues that impact our community. A lot of the laws are started in Dover. A lot of things are done in Dover. And if we're going to change our city over time, it's going to take a lot of changing the attitudes of people in Dover, which is a big part of the problem, because Dover looks at Wilmington oftentimes as beggars and as problematic people, and that's Dover as a whole. We need to get down there and make relationships so that we can get the funding up here, and not just get it up here, but put it in the places where we need it. Again, crime. Crime is a direct result of systematic things, right? Crime is a result of poverty. Poverty is a result of undereducation and miseducation. So these are the issues in which I will focus on. I put my money where my mouth is. I built an early childhood learning center in the city with limited resources, with limited help from all of the Democratic politicians in the city of Wilmington, in the state of Delaware. Everyone knew I was building this building. It took me 7 years to build, so it was no secret. No one said, hey, we'll donate a book to you. We'll help you with a book for the children.
Well, let me push back a bit, because when you mentioned the Democratic Party didn't help, I'm assuming the Republican Party didn't help either.
No.
So no one helped,
no
right?
One helped.
And so I think a part of what you and I have talked about in times past is, and what I've heard almost as a mantra in the Black community, is making sure that we vote for the person and not the party.
Absolutely.
Right? So in all fairness to the Democratic Party, neither was the Republican Party around.
Right. No.
But I think your point is that we customarily and traditionally vote as African American people, Democratic, with very, very little results for our community.
And one of the reasons, like she said, because our parents told us to. Because it's defined when we're young, we have to be a Democrat, right? We've been Democrats in Wilmington for the last 30, 40, 50 years, right? Wilmington is pretty much all a Democratic city. Look at our city as a whole, and not where it is now with this new current administration, right? But where it has been, right, for the last 16, 20 years before Mayor Williams came in the office. So it's no attack on a personal administration or any council person that's in office that's new. But a lot of the same people who have been there have been, Democrats. And as a people, we have to learn to vote for the person and not the party, like you said. We have to be able to think and prove to all parties that, hey, we can make educated decisions about whom we choose to vote for.
How do we answer this idea that black people shouldn't run against black people, almost as a sense that it is divisive in nature to do so? And I think that at some very basic level, there's some credibility to that. There's some validity to that. But I also think that it is not a matter of party. I think it's a matter of generation. That there has not been a great deal of room created, space created for new and fresh thought from the younger generation. Do you agree?
And I'm glad you brought up that point, right? If we're running for a particular office in a predominantly black community, then we're going to be a black opponent. Every black opponent who says that has ran against someone black. Everyone has ran against, their predecessor was someone that was typically black, because we've been black in the city of Wilmington for many years. And so it's no attack against a person. I run not to run against a person, but to propose new ideas and new strategies. I think that the older you get as people, you become less connected to the real issues concerning our communities. As pretty much young adults here, we're still kind of young adults in a sense. We're in our 40s or whatever, right?
Not kind of. Right?
Okay. But no,
we all
got to the age in which
Yes.
we stopped letting our parents pick out our clothes for us, right? When mom come home and say, I got you something, baby, we all got to the point where we said, Mom, you really shouldn't have, right? Because at that point, and moms understood it, they started giving us our own money to go get our own stuff, right? And the day is going to come when I'm not going to be able to be connected to the younger generation also. And so I hope when I'm successful in politics that I will prepare someone to come up behind me. I think our politicians have done a poor job of preparing people to take over their positions when they leave. They almost got to die in their seat or be wrestled out of their seat. And I just think that's unfortunate for our community in the long game.
So I think he brings some brilliant points to bear around making sure, and I want to ask both of you a kind of a final question. I think you can answer it in concert, and that is, I know that a part of the Republican staple, right, is this whole idea of self-empowerment. It was, and I believe in self-empowerment, but I think we begin at different stages and premises, right? For the African American, for the black and brown bodies of the United States of America, we don't begin at the same place that our white counterparts begin, right? So do you think that when we raise those issues, do you think that those are matters of excuses? Because I want to let you end it, but I want to talk with you first as a person who has come up out of a number of things and created a degree of success for yourself.
I would have to agree that every situation is different. So when I share statements, it's typically not absolute, but in most cases it is an excuse. In the way that I've just come out of some of the things that I've come out with, I can look back at some of the things that used to be an excuse for me. And it doesn't mean that your reality isn't that. It just means, how long do you blame mama and them for where you are? Or how long do you blame your community, or, just however far back you want to go. It really is just a matter of within your own mind. Like, we create our own experiences. A lot of what I coach people out of is understanding that the excuses that they have, they're not really real. They're just excuses. So when you say, oh, I can't do this because of this, that's not a reality. That's your reality that you created. So how about we get more creative with what your reality really is? The reality really is that there are no limits unless they're self-imposed. So I took personal responsibility to release those self-imposed limitations. So all of the things that people said can't be done, I work a lot with the ex-offender community, females more specifically. And a lot of what they say to me is, oh, well, I can't do this because I'm on a fixed income. I'm like, okay, well, who fixed it? Or I can't do this because I have a felony. I have 7. I don't miss out on much. You know what I mean? But it wasn't always that way. I would always say, oh, I can't do this because of this. But how about I say, what if no one ever helps you? What if no one ever gives you the money to start that school or to, get these things that you want? What if you never have that? Let's just paint that picture. What will you do? Are you going to die in the excuse of saying this is why this doesn't happen? Or do you do something different and redefine success?
And I hear that, and to a very large degree, I agree with that. But I'm also keenly aware of the systemic issues that forbid many people from even reaching that kind of mindset, right? And so unless you have a personal coach like Allison, who does a great job at shifting mindsets, how do you plan to deal with that? You're an African American running as a Republican, which is dichotomous at best, right? And so how do you plan to deal with not only the systemic issues, because they are very real issues? How do you plan to deal with the systemic issues and at the same time deal with what Allison just said, is that we have the responsibility, right, and ability to create our own realities?
Well, I mean, the way you put it, I don't know which one of the questions particularly I could answer, but I could say this. When Barack Obama ran in 2008, the word hope was the word in which he based his platform on, right? Was hope. In our community, so many of our people are hopeless. I am a person who have had challenges in my past. I've had run-ins with the law. I've been through bankruptcy. I've failed in business. I've been successful in business. I've defined and defeated most of the odds, because where I am, I shouldn't be, because I'm a product of a teenage mother. I'm a product of a 15-year-old mother who came up, who raised me the best she could with the resources she had. So I understand what it's like to fail. I understand what it's like to succeed. And I want to show people in our community that this is a country of second chances, and third chances maybe even. Just because you are in a place doesn't mean you have to stay in that place. And someone like me can be a role model to young black males and young black females and say, man, if he's been through this and he still accomplished this, what can I accomplish? And that's why I want to be. I don't just want to accomplish stuff myself, because at the end of the day, I work. I have a job, I have trades, I have skills. But what I do now is I put people to work. I have 25 employees right now, proven and can prove it. As for the payroll sheet, I'll give it to you, right? That pay city taxes, state taxes, federal taxes. How many people can say, well, I have 25 employees that I pay that contribute by paying taxes to our community? This is what we need. We need jobs, right? And in order to have jobs, the people have to be educated. So I'm trying to do what I say I want to do. And if I'm not successful in this campaign, which I don't think I will be unsuccessful, I think I will win, I'm going to still continue to do what I said I'm going to do and what I've been doing, right, for the last 7 years.
Thank you guys so much for coming. Give information to our audience and let them know where they can reach you, how they can find you.
My website is AllisonTMoore.com.
Richard Dighton. You can reach me at richardleroy@comcast.net. We're currently working on our campaign website. When we do our big formal announcement, all that stuff will be unveiled.
So we got a chance to hear the announcement today on the exchange.
Listen, this is where I want to come.
Because this is what the exchange does.
That's what it's about.
The big announcement.
First of all, let me say thank you for inviting me to
Yes,
your
sir.
show,
Yes, sir.
to be here with Ms. Allison. And I'm very proud of your accomplishments. I know some of your struggles, and I've seen you overcome them, and you are inspiration to all of our women and men in the city of Wilmington, and I appreciate you for that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors talking about Ferguson. Don't touch your dial.
Center for Business Growth is an incubation center. And as an incubation center, we have new and emerging businesses coming to the beautiful Claymont Community Center on the second floor, where we do nothing but grow businesses. I am a member of the National Professional Women's Association, and I'm also the only certified National Business Incubation Association member in Delaware. So I look forward to working with the clients. I look forward to growing the incubator. I look forward to having a fantastic and rewarding experience. As our clients today go and grow, we invite you to come into the center, grow your business, and go back into the community to develop the economy in Newcastle County.
The reason why we decided to join the Center for Business Growth is because we felt as though some of the training and the networking and a host of other services they offer would allow us to grow to the next level and be able to provide jobs for Delawareans. And that's our ultimate goal, and that's what we're passionate about.
First State Weddings needed the Center for Business Growth. We needed help from A to Z. They provided business training, they helped us write a business plan, we increased our sales, we acquired insurance, we were assisting with technology and marketing.
In addition, each business will receive individual consultations and attend monthly group meetings. Educational and support services will be available from DFLY, its partners, and other local agencies.
The Center for Business Growth offered me a place where I can call my office. After working out of my home for many years, the center actually gave me a place, a phone, a computer, where I can now, have meetings with my clients rather than my dining room table. I think that was a big attribute for me, from the center, as well as networking, different classes on financial literacy, marketing, and all kinds of strategies that will help your business grow as well as mine.
To find out more about the Center for Business Growth, please log on to www.dsli.org or call 302-792-1200. Make your business grow today.
Thank you for hanging with us here at the Exchange. We have with us today in this next segment, which promises to be an important segment as we talk about what's taking place in Ferguson, Missouri, and not just what's happening in Ferguson, Missouri, but in the words of Jesse Jackson, every Ferguson is all over the country. Dr. Marlene Saunders is here from the Department of Social Work, formerly, right, at the Delaware State University. I'm glad to have you with us.
And now National Association of Social Workers.
And now the National Association of Social Workers. Thank you so much for coming.
My
and then
pleasure.
we also have Mr. Steve Washington, who is here to talk with us about historically black colleges and universities. And there's an organization that he's developed to be able to deal with and add to this conversation around how we deal with Ferguson. And then my friend, Jessica Mann, is here, who is a law student at Drexel University and should be out of there soon and doing what's necessary to help our communities. Welcome to each of you.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming. Dr. Saunders, I kind of want to begin with you as the person here probably with the majority of the experience and one in which I look up to, a person that I look up to for counsel and advice. Tell me from your experience, we just heard our previous guest talk about nailing down success and defining success and redefining success, almost in a way that suggests that any impediment to that success might be a state of mind. And my pushback to that is that we have very real issues in our community, systemic issues in our community that I think really need to be addressed, and that, yes, some of it is mindset. The argument is whether or not that is the residue of previous things that we've gone through, or whether or not that residue is still very, very present in the present moment.
I think it's very present, very real and very present in the immediate present. And let me put it this way. I think that over time, the situation of African Americans in this country has changed in terms of civil rights. With the passage of the Civil Rights Bill, for example, our economic status, has changed. in terms of education. So in terms of objective criteria like education, occupation and education, some of us are on an equal accord with whites. For example, I am equal to my white counterpart who is an executive director of a chapter of the National Association of Social Workers. But in terms of social status, I'm still below her. And I think that is an example of how things have not changed.
And that's an important distinction,
That's
right?
a very
it's
important.
a very, very important distinction that even, Jessica, as all of us try to develop equal footing, right, with our with those that are part of the dominant culture, at some level, just based on skin politic alone, I'm not exactly sure whether we'll ever have equal footing.
Well, as of this moment, I don't see us having equal footing because, as you know, your black skin has been criminalized in many aspects of our legal system, from music to clothing to anything that we do. We have to walk with our heads down in situations where our white counterparts don't have that fear of, if my music is too loud, will the police pull me over? If I wear this outfit, will the police pull me over? Those things we have to deal with today. Will we have to deal with this tomorrow? I'm not sure, but today, that is the reality of being black in America.
And I think that's important too, right? That none of us can really see into the future, right? Melissa Harris Perry talks all the time about cards that her father wrote to her, and at the end of the card, Brother Washington, was this sense that the struggle continues. And as an 8-year-old, she didn't have a clue of what it meant when her father would write the struggle continues. But to Jessica's point, we don't know what tomorrow holds, but here's what we do know: there's a struggle tomorrow. And no matter if all of us pass on the scene at the time that we pass from the scene, there will still be the struggle.
Yeah, and struggle, is that a bad thing? Perhaps struggle can be good because then it lets you know that you are human. I mean, to struggle does give you hope because then you get past one obstacle and then you build on that obstacle and then you're able to be successful. I really think it's based upon perception, the way we see things. If I see myself as a loser, 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna act on that. If I see myself as a successful person, 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna act on becoming successful. And yes, there are going to be obstacles that are set before you, but you push on through that obstacle because guess what? There's a comfort zone that we all fall in and rely in. But the only thing that stops us from being successful is when we fall out of our comfort zone. But you know what? Once we get used to being in that comfort zone that we're not used to, that when we fall out of that comfort zone that we're not used to, as we practice and continue to push forth, that becomes a part of our comfort zone. And then there's another obstacle that
I mean, I hear that, and I agree with that. I think sometimes when we have these conversations, Dr. Saunders, the danger is when we start talking about obstacles, right, and we start talking about, mountains, we talk about them in a very sexy way. And there's nothing sexy about systematized oppression, white supremacy. There's nothing sexy about that. And I don't want to minimize the fact that a young black man coming home from prison for something he really should not have been imprisoned about doesn't have very real issues when he tries to go get jobs, he can't vote. All of these things are not sexy issues, but they're very real impediments.
And you're absolutely right, and I think I understand your point about, struggle being a part of life. And through struggle, we do grow, and develop. But I think there's a very real difference between struggle that we all expect to have to encounter because nothing is given to you. Exactly. And if anytime you want something, you expect to have to work for it. Yeah. But to have to struggle because of who you are. Right. And you and I have talked about why is it when you look at other ethnic groups, so-called successful ethnic groups that have made it, and you look at why blacks continue to have the problems we have with things like discrimination, prejudice, and racism. Why is that? You and I read a passage from an author, a sociologist named Marger, and he looked at this question too, and his answer was color. Okay? and we are always going to be black. So that means, in a way, that we should expect to have to struggle because of this. Now, the other question that we need to ask ourselves is, if that is our reality, what do we do? What should we do? And since we're talking about this within the context of Ferguson,
Yes.
I think the thing we need to say is Ferguson could happen right here in Wilmington.
Oh, yes. Oh,
So
yes.
what do we need to do in Wilmington to be proactive so that brothers can get home alive? Because it's obvious that policing now is something more than, protect and serve the public. Policemen seem to be in a self-defense mode to get home alive. You hear them talk about, well, with the other young man who was killed and he had a knife. And people are asking, well, why didn't they tase him? Why didn't they shoot him, in the knee? Why didn't they use a billy club? And the captain or the lieutenant said, well, we weren't sure that would safely, get the policeman home. If policemen are in a self-defense mode, then we need to be in a self-defense mode too. And that takes me back to how my elders used to teach us how to behave and how to survive in their world. What to do so that you get home, and survive and get home alive.
We talked a bit about this in the black room. I don't call it the green room, right?
Yeah.
And so we talked a bit about this in the black room, and my pushback to that was how long, right, do we have to survive in the air quote their world, right? As if there should not, that the world that exists belongs to everyone within its borders, right? And so as a person born here, as an educated person, I should not have, I'm not saying that we don't, I'm saying that we should not have to almost become non-existent, or at least blend into a society that doesn't belong to us just in order to make it home, right? So if I got to make it home, then I can't play my music loud. And I've asked people, what in the heck does, because they say, well, tell the young black man pull his pants up, okay? It's it doesn't look good, but how in the heck does his pants being down, what does that have to do with whether or not the brother's educated, whether or not he's qualified? And so it speaks to this whole idea and notion of how do we get home, Jessica? How do we manage this present moment so that we can get to the future moment Dr. Saunders talks about?
I recently had a conversation with individuals, and we were just talking about just a simple police, getting stopped by the police on the side of the highway. And they were saying that as a black person, they feel like if he say, can I search your vehicle, I have to say yes. But to me, I feel like if you want to search your right to say, no, you can't search my vehicle, then you have that right to say no. But then when you have that group of people who say, I just want to get home, so I'm going to say, yes, officer, even though I have this right, I'm going to give it up to you because I want to go home. Then you have this individual who say, no, I'm going to assert my right. You're not going to assert my vehicle. This person here is aggressive. This person here is a threat. This person here is not respecting law enforcement. So this person here will be treated as someone who needs to be taken out the street. Oh, you must have something to hide. You must have drugs in your vehicle. So I'm going to detain you longer. I'm going to make you so mad at me that when you start being aggressive, now I have a reason to get into your car.
Wow.
So I think that, yes, we want to get home. We want to go home to our family, but we have to find a balance to say, when will we make them respect the rights that we do have instead of just taking them away from us in each little increment that they can find. So I think we have to spark a balance with the reality that we're living in.
I think that's a brilliant point.
And I think she makes an excellent point. And for me, what that means is, we have choices to make.
Yeah.
And I think, you've got to decide. And it takes a level of emotional intelligence, to decide, I'm going to behave this way, or am I going to behave this way? And what are the consequences? What do I think the consequences are if I behave this way? And if the consequences are worth what the possible outcomes could be, because every war is not worth fighting.
You got
know?
that right.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And or am I going to behave this way? So that if you encounter a policeman, you know, and you're trying to be civil and asserting your rights, but he's coming, or she is coming off aggressive, has hand on gun, has the gun drawn, then you need to decide how much you're going to push, push this person.
If you desire to, we're going to continue this conversation. Call us now at 302-661-4468 and ask questions of our guests that we have here today. 302-661-4468. One of the startling things that I noticed about Ferguson, which is happening across the country and in other metropolitan cities, is the fact that right now Ferguson's population is 67.4% black, right?
Wow.
It's 28.7% white, but all of the elected officials are white. Right? So you have a predominantly white or a black populace, but you have in leadership people who don't see through the same lens that, and don't have the same cultural sensitivities that the people that they are attempting to govern or so on and so forth.
And I agree. And that's why HBCU schools are really important, simply because it gives us the opportunity to work with some of the kids that we know about. I heard a Chinese fellow say that you know, I don't hate black people, I don't hate white people. I'm not racist. It's just that I love my people. And I believe when we begin to love ourselves and our people, that love will spread and it allows them to then grow, because they're missing a lot of skills simply because of that love part being out. And a lot of times, like learned behavior, for example, if a kid uses adjectives or cuss words in the classroom and he learned that behavior, we then put him out of the classroom instead of giving him a more proper adjective. So then that kid is missing that skill. So sometimes we really need to work with the population that we are in, and not saying that we cannot work with population out of, but everyone loves their entire community will love themselves.
Hi, you're on with the round table. This is not the round table, this is the exchange. I got the round table this evening. You're on with the exchange. This is Dr. Morton.
Hello, my name is Jerome Saunders. My question to the panel, would you agree to have the state troopers here, or would you agree to have the National Guard here? The reason why I'm asking this question, because I think that we need some help in the streets of Wilmington, and I think that someone's holding them back with the answer. I'm not saying who, but someone's holding back, and they're scared to have help here in Wilmington. Do you agree to have some more policing, or would you agree to have the National Guard? I'm gonna hang up and listen.
Thank you for your question. Doc?
That's my brother.
Is that your Okay.
At one point, you know, when the violence became so rampant, you know, I was saying we need to bring in the National Guard. But I after Ferguson, I have quickly changed my mind, because obviously if you have law enforcement that is militaristic,
correct,
in terms of its approach and its attitude, then the National Guard is just going to exacerbate the problem. And as unfortunate as this situation is, it has given us many lessons. And I think one of the lessons is that the folk in Ferguson have rallied in a very concerted, organized way, and hopefully the change, you know, that has emerged through the marches, through the coalitions that are probably going to be formed, will continue. I think the other thing that this situation has proven is that police need training, and there are.
What does that training look like, Doc? When you say police need training, how do you define that?
Well, there is one study, you know, that shows that both white and black people are more prone to shooting a unarmed black person versus a white person. But when training occurs in terms of how to talk with people, how to develop trust, how to problem solve, the way the officer did who was brought in after the riots occurred, then there can be better relations between police and the public, and trust and confidence grows, so that people are more willing to walk together. So you had a situation right now where the police and the community are marching together, carrying the NAACP placard sign, together.
Okay.
But I think to answer, Mr. Saunders' question, now is the time to be proactive. Don't let something tragic like what has happened in Ferguson happen and erupt. Let's start using the lessons from Ferguson in Wilmington.
Well, and I want to talk to Jessica about that point, because one of the points that you made on Facebook, and then you text me and called me and fussed at me on the phone, was about that whole issue of whether or not we're too reactive, and whether or not we need to start taking smaller steps and approaches before something like this blows out of the proportion here in Wilmington. What can we do, right? Your point was to deal with some of the smaller issues, whether that's voting, whether that's some of the things that we can do, right? You were talking about that. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes, I just think that we should be more proactive as a community instead of just being angry and reactive when something big happens. As I was saying, your rights are being taken from you daily on minute levels. So we need to focus on those issues. Why is half of the African American community not voting? Why are they taking fundings out of school? As he was talking about, we're missing critical skills in our neighborhood for a lot of these reasons. We don't have people in office who are going to speak up for us. We're not voting to put those individuals who will speak up for us in the office. And I think that we just need to focus on building a stronger black community so that we can rely on each other, so that when things of this nature happen, we're not running out fussing, throwing bottles in a unorganized fashion. We are able to fully articulate, no, this is what happened, this is what we're expecting you to do about what happened. And if you don't do what needs to be done about what just happened, we're gonna march peacefully every day. We're gonna protest. We're gonna bring national attention to Wilmington, Delaware, to any other city across this country until something is done. We won't allow you to continue to treat us as if we're less than a man. You will treat us